Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hello, this is Robert Smigel with Canada's podcast, where we talk to entrepreneurs who are making it happen here in British Columbia. Today, our guest is Tamara Martin. Tamara believes success is not final and failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. She is the owner of Mirror Image Vacation Rental Services. Born and raised in Kelowna, BC, in the beautiful Okanagan Valley. And in Kelowna, it's all about tourism. Whether it be world-class wineries or champagne powder at Big White Ski Resort or sparkling lakes, she always knew tourism and hospitality was something she was not only passionate about, but was in an area she could see herself getting into business. After 15 plus years of scraping by as a waitress and bartender and never getting ahead, she applied for a part-time job with Kelowna Resort Accommodations, which is a large-scale property management company in Kelowna. And then from there, she started her own business. Tamara, welcome to Canada's podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to share your entrepreneurial journey with all our listeners.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Great. Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? You're born and raised in Kelowna. And have you traveled or you just always stayed in Kelowna and always in tourism?
I love traveling. Traveling is the reason that I put so much effort into my business. I want to see the world and I try to get somewhere else every year to expand my horizons for sure.
Okay, good. Tell us a little bit more about your business that you're doing now. Where are you on your entrepreneurial journey?
So I've been in business coming up on actually in the next week, 2 years. A very, very new business. So I started 2 years ago. I was a bartender, I was a server, and that's what I've been for the majority of my life. I have 3 beautiful children, Callie, Owen, and Jordan. And so I just, I served, I bartended, I worked in many different establishments, and I always found myself within a month or two in a leadership role within those establishments. And however, I was not getting by. I was not able to save money. I was not able to do what I wanted to do with my kids. And so I took a part-time job within Airbnb cleaning with Kelowna Resort Accommodations. And it was there that I was working part-time, evenings and those days off that I had. And I had a real estate agent come in and ask, hey, like, are you taking on any new clients? And of course I was like, yes. And so they offered me, he said, I need to put you in contact with my friend Dale Holmes, who is a property manager within Kelowna here. And I phoned Dale Holmes and he took me on to take over 4 properties. And I had to make the decision because even 4 properties will take up a lot of time. So I had to make the decision to roll with this or continue on with what I was doing with serving and bartending. So I made the decision. It was a hard one. It was a scary one, but I made the decision to get into business for myself within the Airbnb game. So I did those 4 properties. And before I knew it, those 4 properties turned into 7. And then I was, needing help. So I hired my first employee. From there we grew. And honestly, most companies use a lot of marketing. We've never actually used any marketing. It was strictly just word of mouth. But I had to find a way to stand out amongst all the other, Kelowna is a community that is saturated in cleaning companies and in Airbnb management companies. So I had to find a way to stand out. And how I did that was, I really wanted to make sure that the quality was there every day in every way. So what we did to stand out, honestly, was just to, if one team member does it, another team member checks it. And that way we can ensure quality and we can ensure that you're getting the same service every single time. So that's how I chose to stand out. And before I knew it, I had a contract get offered to my company for over 100 properties. And the rest is history. So.
Oh, okay. Regarding Airbnb and management, give me one piece of knowledge or information about your industry you can share that would benefit our listeners? Is there anything that is unique about that people may not know about Airbnb management?
Well, you got to be willing to roll with the punches. You never know what you're getting into. So I'll have people contact me and they'll say, "Are you available at this time?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know what I'm walking into from one day to the next, right? I can't decipher how guests are going to leave a property and how guests are going to leave various properties. So it's really being able to walk into your day and not knowing what that is going to entail. So we've had some nightmares. We've had, where somebody, I guess rents one of our Airbnbs and they have a party and it's crazy. So that was a juggling act that I had to deal with in the beginning was, trying to schedule my time without knowing what I was walking into.
Okay. What are you most proud of in terms of the work you do? What is something that you're really proud of that you kind of go, you know what, every day it's kind of shows me that I'm on the right track?
I'm proud of the service that we offer. We stand out amongst the rest of our competition in that what I had just explained to you, that we offer a guarantee on our services and we are consistent in our services. So how I came into the game and, this is a saturated industry and I had to find a way to stand out amongst everyone else. And the way that I did that was, I gave my clients that guarantee and I gave them, that comfort of knowing that every time was going to be the same service. So what they've gotten from us before is what they will always get from us. And how I did that was, and that's how I chose to stand out amongst everyone else, was that when we enter a property, it is completed by one teammate and another teammate is inspecting it and another teammate is going through it, so that you have multiple sets of eyes on the job that was done, so that it's checked off by those multiple people. So there's not really room for things to get missed and things to be erred, which was huge within my company because most of my clients are, they live down south or they live in Eastern Canada or, they're abroad. And so they can't come and check for themselves. So they need that comfort of knowing that what they've come to expect from my company is what they will continue to get every single time. And that just that consistency and that is what I would give the most credit to my success in my business and how I rose above the rest.
Canada's podcast is your gateway to success in the world of entrepreneurship. Start listening today. CanadasPodcast.com. Subscribe now.
What advice would you give someone starting out as an entrepreneur? If you were talking to someone very young, wanted to be an entrepreneur, what's some just general things that you would tell them before they got started?
Wow. So much. So, first of all, you have to be willing to take a risk. It's always a risk. It's always a chance. There's no guarantees that your business is going to make it. So make sure that you have a plan in place to facilitate success. But success is never guaranteed. Within my own company, I've had many fallbacks, many drawbacks, lots of failures and lots of success. And so you just have to, you have to be driven. For myself, and I've told my own children, my business comes first. And that's how I've grown my business. My business comes first. And lots of people might go, oh, that's crazy. Family has to come first. Your children need to come first. They do come first, but if I don't put my business first and I don't put the success of my business first, then everything else is going to fall apart, right? So, when my business calls upon me and needs me, I need to be there. And that is, if you want to start a business, it is 24/7. It is 365. I've worked Christmases. I've worked New Year's. I've worked, Easter's, everything, Thanksgiving, you name it. I've worked all of those days. If my business calls upon me, I don't care what day it is. I'm going to be there and I'm going to bring it to the table. And, maybe it doesn't always need to be like that, but we are still a new business. We are only coming up on 2 years in business on May 3rd, which is, our 2-year anniversary of me starting this company. And it's done very well. And, but I've had to make it my baby. I've had to essentially make it another one of my children.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about working in British Columbia as an entrepreneur. What are the biggest benefits for you being an entrepreneur in British Columbia? Can you share some of the good points about operating here, but also give me some of the challenges along the way that you've encountered while working and operating in BC?
Well, British Columbia, I've traveled across Canada. And it's such a beautiful country. But when you come to British Columbia, you've got mountains, you've got lakes, you've got ski hills, you've got wineries, you've got oceans, you've got, we really have it all in British Columbia. So it's a really a beautiful place to grow a business that does center around tourism. So I had that working for me. Working against me was October 2023. We came into new legislation on Airbnb within British Columbia. And wow, what a scary time. It was the biggest curveball I've ever been thrown within my company was, literally, hey, May 1st, 2024, Airbnbs aren't going to operate unless they are primary residents. And for me, where I operated my company with over 100 properties was all condos and basically my company was ripped out from under me right there in that new legislation that was taking place May 1st, 2024, which is coming up in a couple days. But wow, what a terrifying experience. I've built my business and my foundation within my business upon vacation rentals. And all of a sudden I had, over 100 properties and they're all gone. They're gone. And so I had to take my business and I had to relook at it and how can I pivot and how can I get through this alive and how can I keep my company mirror image alive? So what that meant was, hey, do we offer, car detailing services? Do we offer residential cleans and management? Do we, what do we do here? And so I was fortunate enough that I was contacted by Kelowna Resort Accommodations to take over running everything over at Casaluma Resort, which doesn't fall under the new legislation, but wow, like what a stressful time. So, and that I think will happen within any business. You're going to get thrown curveballs, and you have to be willing to reinvent yourself, invent your company, and how can we keep cash flow coming in, and how can we make sure that people still have jobs, and how can we make sure that we're still a success story. So
how do you deal with fear and doubt when that first hits or different challenges? Are you well organized to pivot, to adjust to a situation? How do you kind of overcome that, the initial shock of something like that? You put into place,
well,
damage control.
I cried for a couple days. And then, like I say, you start like saying, well, okay, maybe we can venture in this direction. Maybe we can venture in that direction. And that is business as a whole. It's very few and far between that a business is just going to make sense all the time and not have any drawbacks or issues or, curveballs being thrown at them. And, I got thrown that giant curveball. And for me, my team, my company would not be what it is, and it wouldn't exist in the way that it does without the amazing backbone that I have behind me. And so they were a huge driving force in that I was not willing to call those people and say, hey, you know what, you don't have a job to come back to May 1st. So I wanted to make sure that we had something in place, whether that meant going into auto detailing or going into residential, or no matter what we had to do. I wasn't willing to, my company was my baby, and it's a new baby. We've only been in business for coming up on 2 years. I wasn't willing to accept defeat at this point. And, that I guess it all comes down to tenacity and just, you have to you have to roll with the punches. You have to roll with everything that comes towards you. There's going to be hurdles that you have to jump and overcome. Some of them are going to be hard. Some of them are going to be small, but, if you have a mindset of, for me in business, it's very important to be organized. It's very important to have a to-do list that you address every day, and you are, crossing off those items on your to-do list each day. It's important to have goals and that you strive to meet. And it's important to, just every day. For me personally, what drives my success isn't what drives every business's success. But for me, nothing else in life comes before I make those goals happen, and before those, my to-do list is crossed off, and just, addressing whatever comes my way.
Okay. Let's talk goals. Where do you see your business in 5 years? If you were to
where I see my business in 5 years. So right now we've grown exponentially throughout the Okanagan, and I've acquired some amazing people that help me make that happen. I would like to think about, franchising out and growing into other communities within the Okanagan, within our province, and within other provinces. So, ideally, that would happen, where we might be able to franchise and we might be able to grow. But the challenge in that is always finding yourself within someone else. So someone that has the passion that you have and the love for your company that you have, finding that person that's going to start up that new franchise with the same passion that you have and the same love for your company that you have, and just growing in that way. So, that would be a goal and something that I've been working very hard towards. I have a beautiful business partner. Her name is Christina Peralt. And, when they offered me that contract on over 100 properties, it was obviously something that I couldn't do alone. So she was someone that I hired on as just a regular worker 2 years ago. And now she's, she helps me run a very big chunk of my company, and which opened us up to growing larger, because she was there. So now there was two of me. And so now we're trying to find a third me and a fourth me. And so that is, I guess, the end goal is just to grow, and come into that place where you find people that you can trust, that are going to have the same end goal that you do, and that are going to want to grow your company with you.
Stay ahead of the game with our expert tips and strategies that will help your business thrive in a digital era. CanadasPodcast.com. Subscribe now.
Kelowna is a very beautiful place. There's lots to do up there. How do you create work-life balance, if you can? And what do you do to relax and just kind of enjoy it? If you're not working all the time.
So I find solitude in, I have a beautiful home that is right on Woods Lake, out in Lake Country. So every day, I come home from work and I can unwind there. So coming home from work as a business owner doesn't mean that work is over. Like, it's not going to work as an employee and you do your 9 to 5, right? So I do my work day out in the community. And then I come home and right immediately I address my books. Okay. I'm taking care of payroll, and I'm taking care of just making sure that everything is, in the books, and everything for that day is accounted for and stuff. And then once I've done that, then I really like paddleboarding. I really like meditation. I really like, hanging out with like-minded people. I have a beautiful group of friends that are also entrepreneurs that I like to pick their brains and stuff like that. But sometimes it's just nice to completely shut it off. So you can do that with a hike. You can do that by going out boating. You can do that by hanging out with a good friend, reading a good book. There's so many ways to disconnect from work, which is really important when you can find the time to do that. So work comes first. And then when you can find those moments where you can disconnect from work, which is essentially a recharge for your brain, that's so important. And, those are the ways that I do it myself. And just being out in nature and just being connected to your higher power, which for me, it's, the universe as a whole. And, I draw strength from that. So.
Okay. Let's have a couple of fun questions for you. If you
Okay.
weren't doing what you do now, what would you like to do for a profession? You could pick any profession besides the Airbnb business you. What would you do?
I can't really answer that specifically. I think that I've kind of won the lottery in the fact that, what I loved about serving, what I loved about bartending, I brought to the table and within my new endeavors. So I like dealing with people. I could never be someone that, sat in an office and stared at a computer screen. I'm a social person. I like to be talking with other people, getting new ideas. And I really like dealing with my clients. I really like dealing with my staff. I really like being a leader. I really like sharing my knowledge. So all of those things come to the forefront in my company now. If I can't have a company within the Airbnb industry, anything with tourism, anything where I'm dealing with people and, able to pick, your brain, not just mine. I love meeting new people and experiencing what they have to offer and the advice that they have.
Okay, what two words would you use to describe yourself?
Tenacious, definitely, and driven,
Okay.
which might kind of be the same thing, but I can't drive those home enough. That has been my business's success. I've watched a million people come into my, industry, and I've watched, unfortunately watched them not make it. And it's because I don't have a shut off button. If my business isn't doing well, then I'm not feeling good about my business. I'm not feeling good about myself. And, it's just kind of a domino effect. I thrive off of that. I thrive off of being a leader, being organized and putting that work first. And essentially I have 3 children, but I have 4 because my company is my 4th child. And that's how you make a business work, is by loving your business like you love your child. And you have to put the same amount of time and effort into it.
Anything keeping you up at night? Do you shut it off, or do you think and write down things in the middle of the night, notepad by the nightstand, or you just turn it off?
Absolutely. My mind goes a million miles an hour, but that's where that to-do list comes in. If you're addressing your to-do list and you've crossed it off, it's a lot easier to go to sleep at night, which is super important in running a business and being present every day and being able to be on the ball. Is, you need to be able to shut it off. And for me personally, the best way to shut it off is, you make yourself a reasonable to-do list every day. When you attack it, now you can shut it off. If you feel like you're allowed to shut off your brain, then you can. That works for me.
Okay. Do you have any books that you've read that have helped you with your businesses?
One of my favorite books that I read right actually before starting my company and was influential in starting my company has a bleep word in the title. It's called How to Unfuck Yourself. And it was a fantastic book that I read. And, it's just about self-empowerment and self-growth and believing in yourself and finding that confidence. And, it's one of my favorites.
Now, is there any advice you received along your journey that you can pass on to entrepreneurs throughout Canada? Have you had a mentor or anyone that you said that you have other entrepreneurs that are friends and so forth? Has anyone ever given you just a kind of real gem of advice or statement?
So many times. One of the best pieces of advice that I live my life by and run my company by was the funniest piece of advice ever, but it was by an entrepreneur that, has a business that's, I won't say any names, but is operating across Canada and doing phenomenal, doing amazing. And I picked their brain and I said, "What's your piece of advice?" And they looked at me and they said, "Brush your hair and brush your teeth." And I was like, what does that mean? And they said, if you can get into, you get into a rhythm, and no matter what happens in that day, you're going to brush your teeth and you're going to brush your hair, or you're going to do your books and check your emails, or you're going to, it's finding something that, you know what, sometimes I don't feel like it. Sometimes I'm not feeling well. Sometimes I'm feeling lazy. Sometimes I'm feeling like I'd rather be at the beach. But if you have that list, this is what I need to do every day. And no matter what happens in your world, you address those things, then you can only move up. So that was a huge piece of advice. And the other one was what you started the interview with. And, that was that success is not guaranteed and failure is not death. And it's really not. You will fail in your company. Absolutely. And just don't let it defeat you. And, you just keep going and pick yourself up and carry on and learn from your mistake and apply it to your future business endeavors.
Cool. Okay. Well, Tamara, we're going to wrap things up. How can our listeners get a hold of you? Is there anything you'd like to add before you leave us today?
I would just like to add, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. And, I just wish everyone the biggest success. And in those times of darkness, find your strength and keep going because, I don't know how many times in my journey, which, has only been 2 years, but how many times I felt like quitting, how many times I felt defeated with the new legislation and with everything else. But you just keep going. So that's another piece of advice in running a business is don't watch the clock, do what the clock does. Just keep going. Just keep going.
Brush your teeth and brush your hair.
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay, Tamara, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so
I've learned
much.
a lot about you, and I'm sure our listeners have as well.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you.
See you next time.